Hi everyone! Today we'll be talking about one of my favorite artists, as you may be able to tell by the shirt. We're talking Elton John. Now I've had the pleasure of listening to his discography all week to come up with the cream of the crop. I'm calling this, undeniably, the top 10 best Elton John songs. And for a little bit of fun, I'll have my pick for an overrated song at the end. But in the meantime, let's get to the top 10. At number 10, we have Amarina from Tumbleweed Connection. 1970 was the year Reginald Dwight became the ascendant star, Elton John. While he had adopted the stage name a few years earlier, based off the former bandmates in his first band, Bluesology, it was in 1970 where he released not one, but two classic albums, Elton John in March, and 6 months later, Tumbleweed Connection in October. These were the second and third albums officially released by Elton. They were preceded by the slight but enjoyable Empty Sky, which didn't make commercial waves. But the album Elton John officially made him a songwriter of note. He was only 23 at the time. After having several hits, Elton and his lyrical collaborator Bernie Taupin did not wait to write and record their next album. At the time, the songwriting duo was a magnificent machine. Taupin would claim to write the lyrics in under an hour, and Elton would write the music for it in under a half an hour, literally throwing away the lyrics if he could not find a melodic fit. Tumbleweed Connection was a collection of songs based on an Americana, country, and western theme, despite neither writer having been to America at the time of the recording. Amarina is a bluesy strut, with soulful organ backing Elton's dusty saloon piano strides. Dee Murray and Nigel Olsson, formerly of the Spencer Davis Group, joined on the song, and would become an integral part of the Elton John band during his prime years. Amarina is the best song on a classic album that seems overshadowed because of its lack of singles. But make no mistake, the album is every bit as good as the second album. Elton and Bernie were really cooking. At number 9, we have Border Song from the album titled Elton John. Young Reggie grew up in a musical family. His father was a trumpeter in a military big band, and his mother was a keen record enthusiast who introduced early rock records from Jerry Lee Lewis, Bill Haley, and Little Richard to the household. He was hooked at a young age. He would play his grandmother's piano by ear at 6 years old. And by 7 he was enrolled in formal lessons. By age 11, he received a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Music, where he studied for 5 years, before leaving to pursue his professional dreams and not officially graduating. At age 15, he was hired as a pianist for a local pub in London, where he would play standards as well as some of his early originals. It was around the same time where he joined his first band, Bluesology, who would later back American R&B groups like the Isley Brothers. In 1967, after answering an ad in New Musical Express for songwriters, young Reginald was given lyrics from another budding songwriter who had answered the ad, Bernie Taupin. This would be the start of long, fruitful collaborations between the two. Border Song was the first single off his second album, Elton John. It's a heavy, gospel-inspired song with some excellent orchestration to accent the triumphant choir. He's my brother, let us live in peace. It's so full of soul that the Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin, covered the song. It starts with a searching minor melody before preaching a warm chorus of solidarity. It broke Elton into America and would be the start of a staggering string of hits. It's one of his very best. At number 8, we have Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me from Caribou. In the early 70s, Elton and his band would release back-to-back-to-back-to-back artistic and commercial smashes. But on 1974's Caribou, it definitely seemed like it was a rushed affair. Outside the singles, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me and The Bitch Is Back, a kicking, hard rock jam. Ideas are definitely being thrown at the wall, but not much is sticking. Later, producer Gus Dudgeon would literally call the album a piece of crap, saying the songs are nowhere. Harsh, and this guy worked on the album. Allegedly, he's a big reason to thank for Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. Elton was having a hard time nailing the vocals for the song, and was ready to scrap it. But Dudgeon used his best take and produced the hell out of it. He recruited two Beach Boys, Carl Wilson and Bruce Johnson, to add those majestic, almost always wordless, backup vocals. They transport the sad sack verses to a divine search for redemption and connection. Along with typically stellar piano work from the Rocket Man himself, he pulled out one of his big hits from nearly being in the trash bin. It's a brilliant ballad, and when the horns sound out at the end, it feels like you've been through a transformative journey, and you'll want to take this trip all over again. At number 7, we have Elderberry Wine from Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. The output from Elton John and Bertie Taupin in the early 70s was unreal. After the smash success of 1972's Honky Chateau, they released 2 albums in 1973 to strike while that iron was hot. The first album released that year, Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, compared to his masterpiece Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, released a few months later, is slighter, with some unfleshed out ideas, but its high points are among the best in his catalog. This album, along with Honky Chateau, are the only 2 to simply feature the core Elton John band. Elton, along with Dee Murray on bass, Nigel Olsson on drums, and Davy Johnstone on guitars. Elton, of course, was an incredible vocalist and piano player, but that band was tight and dynamic. He would certainly tour with other talented musicians, but that core band really added so much to the music. Daniel is a great, almost island-vibed ballad, and Crocodile Rock is super catchy, but on its B-side, Elderberry Wine, the band was at its absolute best. It's a kicking, upbeat rocker with a swinging horn section. The band is in fine form here. The bass line dances along with the steady beat, while the piano and guitar play tastefully back, accenting the rhythm, and the horn melody jams the chorus. If you listen to the lyrics closely, it might seem a little dark, a drunk reminiscing about his ex-flame, but the piano stomping energy is infectious and undeniable. It's an overlooked gem in Elton's catalog. At number 6, we have Goodbye Yellow Brick Road from the album of the same name. While the hits from Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player kept the Elton John hit machine hot, nothing could prepare fans for the epic, superb masterpiece that was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. If you were somehow insanely only allowed one Elton album, I don't know how you couldn't pick this as the absolute pinnacle of his career. It was designed to be a landmark album, and it was executed perfectly. It would definitely be my pick for the entry point into Elton's magic world. It has it all stylistically: prog rock, tender ballads, orchestral epics, and heavy hard rock. It was an exclamation point to Elton's arrival as a superstar in bright lights and capital letters. If I'm being totally honest, it's a tad overlong, but the list of top-tier songs is unparalleled. Harmony, Gray Seal, Funeral for a Friend. I could just list a majority of the track list to prove my point. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is a gorgeous ballad, with Elton's delicate melody meshing so well with Taupin's poetic lyrics. So goodbye Yellow Brick Road, where the dogs of society howl. The string arrangement is gigantic and cinematic, and the lulling Beatlesque background vocals conjure the fairy tale. While it is wistful about the past, it's still exuberant and enchanting. It's no wonder that Elton would later have a big hit with Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Goodbye Yellow Brick Road already sounds like some kind of Disney movie. Grand, extraordinary, aiming for timeless, and succeeding. At number 5, we have Someone Save My Life Tonight from Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. After slacking and only releasing one album in 1974, Elton John and Bernie Taupin released 2 in 1975. Rock of the Westies is kind of along the lines of Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, in that it has a couple big hits like Island Girl and Grow Some Funk of Your Own, but overall it's a pretty unfocused album. Perhaps owing to the fact that longtime bassist Dee Murray and drummer Nigel Olsson were fired earlier in the year, it doesn't have a clear identity. However, that is not the case for the album released several months prior, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. It's an indulgent but excellent, autobiographically tinged concept album about the upbringing and struggles of Elton John and Bernie Taupin. I'll let you guess who was which character, but hint, the cover kind of gives it away. Elton claims it was so singularly a concept album that it was written from start to finish in the album sequence. It's a focused vision and quite a statement. Someone Save My Life Tonight is a jewel in the treasure chest. It was the only single released from the album and was a huge hit despite being nearly 7 minutes long. It's hard to imagine how such a long, desperate plea could be a hit single on paper, but the performance and arrangement fires on all cylinders. Hitting close to home with Elton singing about his unsuccessful suicide attempt, it burns with emotions still raw. The MCA record executives wanted the song cut down to a more traditional length, but Elton stood his ground and was ultimately proven right. It was still a huge hit and one of his signature songs. To rob it of any of its full length would be a grave injustice. It needs those long valleys of lows to reach those incredible peaks. Highway, bye-bye. At number 4, we have Rocket Man from Honky Chateau. In 1972, Reginald Dwight would legally change his name to Elton Hercules John and would release his biggest artistic and commercial success to date, Honky Chateau. The album was more polished, but also more eclectic, dipping its toes in New Orleans boogie, country saloon scats, and rhythm and blues shoebop. While it might sound unfocused on paper, the songs are on point, and it's more stripped down than Madman Across the Water or Elton John. With the strings gone, the band takes its time to shine. Previously, the record label executives insisted that the backup band only play on one song per album, and instead use session players, which seems like some weird, archaic, bottom-line focused thinking. Dee Murray and Nigel Olsson were finally free to stretch out over an entire album, and Davy Johnstone, who had done some guitar session work for Madman, joined the core of Elton's stellar backing band. Johnstone adds the signature slide guitar to Rocket Man, giving the chorus a floating feeling. Well, I think it's gonna be a long, long time. It was definitely partially inspired by David Bowie's A Space Oddity, and has that same springy liftoff sound. It's another tale of alienation in the outer orbits, but it has the contrast of the haunting, desolate verses with the soaring, elevated chorus. The background vocals of the backup trio are sublime, adding technicolor harmonies that would become hallmarks of Elton's golden age. Elton gives a warm, nuanced vocal performance that really pushes it out of this world. The band was earthbound but shooting for the moon. At number 3, we have Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting from Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. While Elton would eventually write for musical theater and animated films, let's not forget that he could rock and roll with the best of them. Saturday Night's Alright for Fighting is an unrestrained ripper. Some called it glam rock because of the Benny and the Jets images. But it's more an amp-cranked stadium rock a la The Who, with a Jerry Lee Lewis on fire piano twist. It's completely infectious. Somewhat strangely, it wasn't met with much chart success as the other subsequent singles from Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, but it has become a staple of classic rock radio and Elton's live shows. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road had some great other singles on it. Benny and the Jets is practically synonymous with the band, and fits the flamboyant, theatrical feel of the album. And Candle in the Wind is a precious, lilting ballad that reveals the heart of the album. Saturday Night's Alright for Fighting is a rambunctious and aggressive rocker. Typically, Elton would record his piano parts first, but for this, he overdubbed his piano only after the band had put their tracks down. It really flips the band on its head. Davy Johnstone's riffs are lively and furious, and Elton's growl is game for the dust-up. He's rough on the chorus. Don't give us none of your aggravation. Toppin's lyrics are perfect fodder for shouting along with a belly full of beer at your favorite pub. Saturday Night's more than alright. It's an intoxicated hard rock anthem, and one of his very best. At number 2, we have Tiny Dancer from Madman Across the Water. Before really breaking through with Honky Chateau, Elton John released the dark, progressive rock of Madman Across the Water. It's littered with lengthy songs, with obtuse, sometimes inscrutable lyrics, that are held together by incredible string arrangements by Paul Buckmaster. It's only 9 songs long, but nearly every song passes the 5-minute mark. Elton and Bernie Taupin were aiming for epic, sweeping songs. Leave On was the first single, and a powerful portrait of a man born a pauper to a pawn on a Christmas day, with its sweeping strings during the chorus almost evoking a gospel feel. However, it's the first song on the album that has proven to be its most enduring. Tiny Dancer is a melodramatic stunner of the highest caliber. Taupin's poetic sweet nothings flow over Elton's wounded but graceful melody. The melancholy draws you in, it's alluring. And then the pre-chorus perks up slightly. Oh, how it feels so real, lying here with no one near. Until softly, slowly, into the delicate pleas of the chorus. Hold me closer, tiny dancer. Count the headlights on the highway. Taupin wrote the lyrics after meeting his future wife, and the tender lyrics, along with Elton's heartfelt singing, makes an emotional love song. The mighty piano chords ascending, the lush strings accenting the drama, and the sweet tang of the slide guitar contribute to an unforgettable song. At nearly 6 minutes, it was hardly a hit when first released, but it has rightly grown into a classic from Elton. It's an emotive wonder and transcendent. At number 1, we have Your Song from the album titled Elton John. It was pretty difficult to rate Elton's best songs, but there was no doubt in my mind that Your Song is his absolute best. It's along the lines of Yesterday. It's so succinct, so perfect in encapsulating a stirring feeling that it would be an immediate standard. Elton John and Bernie Taupin are incredibly sharp. The lyrics are moving and sentimental, but not mawkish, and Elton's delivery is so sincere. I hope you don't mind that I put down in words how wonderful life is while you're in the world. It gradually builds from the lonely piano, adding those haunting, resonant strings, and the jazzy, finger-picked Spanish guitar. Elton accents the lyrics, perfectly acting out the scene. A newly smitten lover, fumbling through their feelings, incredibly eager to express their emotions, stumbling with the words to say, but incredibly earnest in their intent. It's a song written as a gift, and it's a gift to music lovers everywhere. The fact that it was offered to Three Dog Night from the young songwriting duo of Elton and Bernie is remarkable. Thankfully, the popular group declined to release it as a single, which gave Elton a chance to rise to the task. And he did more than that. He nailed it. It was one of the most sophisticated, perfect pop songs ever released. Its sweeping melody and unshakable emotion is timeless. It's Elton's very best and stands among the best written songs of all time. Now I'll share two songs that almost made the list. The first is Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatter's from Honky Chateau. It's a song so good, Elton released a sequel to it some 20 years later. This understated ballad doesn't feature the wall of strings that are present in many of his ballads of around the same time. Instead, it relies mainly on the piano and the direct poetic lyrics, with a lovely mandolin joining in the second half. Written after Toppin heard a gun go off near the hotel during his first trip to New York City, it's a poignant tribute to the quiet dignity of the many workers in the metropolis, and it's sung with great affection from Elton. It was never released as a single, but it's a fan favorite and a favorite of Elton himself. The other is Madman Across the Water, the title track from the album of the same name. It was originally recorded for inclusion on Tumbleweed Connection, with Mick Ronson, who would later back up David Bowie during his Ziggy Stardust era, on guitar. That version is well worth a listen. The dark, ominous song creeps deliberately, with its string arrangements almost attacking the listener. On a live version on the BBC in 1971, the length is nearly doubled to 11 epic minutes. That pushes it from progressive pop to dissonant jazz territory. It's an underrated epic. Finally, I bring you my pick for the most overrated song from Elton's catalog. And for that, I choose Sacrifice from Sleeping with the Past. With a catalog as long and varied as Elton's, there's a few numbers that I don't particularly care for. Elton was not afraid to try his hand at the trends of the moment and change with the times, which could result in some great songs and some underwhelming ones. You'd certainly never accuse him of going through the motions. He was always changing directions and challenging himself. Sacrifice was a song I practically forgot about until I started making this list. Somewhat crazily, it was his first #1 hit in the UK in 1989, 2 decades after Your Song, in his home country. It doesn't make much sense to me. It also doesn't really make sense how it has the most views of any of his singles on YouTube. This song? Why? He has much better singles. Even his non-hits deserve more attention. It's a saccharine, mid-tempo love ballad with an incredibly slight chorus and no actual piano in an Elton John song. Instead, it favors electronic drums, twinkling 80s synth, and nearly no dynamics at all. It plods along at the same pace, never changing its sleepy beat. For an artist known for his grand, epic, dramatic works, it's a pretty pedestrian 80s slow jam, which doesn't make it unlistenable, but it is overrated in the context of his legendary career. As you're still watching, I wanted to feature a deep cut as well. And for that, I'm shining a light on Bad Side of the Moon. It was originally released as the B-side to Border Song, and then properly released on the album Lady Samantha, a compilation of odds and ends. Recorded during the Elton John album sessions, with the assistance of Paul Buckmaster's bombastic orchestral arrangements, it's a kicking bluesy number. It adds the soulful backup vocals from Border Song. It's got a great groove. And Elton's voice is rougher around the edges than on most of the album, emphasizing its dirty rock and roll vibe. It's hard to understand why it was ultimately left off the album, but it's well worth discovering, and classic early Elton. Give it a listen. So there you have it. That was undeniably the top 10 best Elton John songs. So, how wrong was I? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you somehow think Sacrifice is his best song? Let me know. And if there's any artist you'd like to see me rank, let me know in the comments below. Hope you stick around. Thank you for watching. But make no mistake. How a long, desperate Dang it. Okay. It's hard to imagine. His father was a trumpeter. Trumpeter? Trumpeter. Yeah, trumpeter. That's right. Yeah. Okay. For some reason in my head, as soon as I said it, I'm like, is that right?
Trumpeter, yeah, instead of trumpeter.
Trumpeter.
Trumpeter, yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound so much like he's like
and alarms again. Okay. No. Insisted that his backup plan. Some called it nope. That the Queen of. Whoa, that was a lot of spit. Candle in the Wind. Davy Johnstone's rips. No. For Elton's wounded but graceful melody. Yeah. Melody. Adding the haunted. No. Amarina. Elton's. Okay. Amarina. Okay. I'm just like. It doesn't. Anyway.